You do a great job of breaking down the ego. If you can explain a little bit about what you think the ego is and what you think the purpose is. And this is also what you're teaching in Master Your Mind Masterclass
Mhm.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yes.
Which I think I might want to take.
A lot of confusing definitions for the ego get thrown around, as you said, which was a big part of the catalyst for me in wanting to get a true understanding of this thing. Because I just thought, obviously, this is a real thing. It's a phenomenon that can be known and studied and understood. But all of the definitions I'm hearing for it don't resonate. They don't seem right. It seems like it's coming from a place, someone is speaking this because they heard it from someone else. It's not coming from true, deep understanding. And whenever I would read true masters like Ramana Maharshi or whoever discuss ego, they never used any of those definitions at all. And although I would still have a hard time getting to the bottom of what their definition for ego was, all of their words resonated powerfully. And so through studying different teachers and doing a lot of self-inquiry and self-investigation, it became really clear that ego is just the simplest thing that there really is about the mind, which is just this sort of activity always going on of claiming, identifying. I'm doing it. I'm thinking it. I did that. My thought, my story, my memory. I am this body. I am this person. Me, I, my, mine. That's ego. And it's like, well, that's natural though. Of course I'm me and I'm doing this and I'm thinking that. Who would question such an obvious notion? But if we start taking the analogy of the dream to understand ego, it makes a lot more sense. The idea that a dream character in a dream doesn't have the ability to act or behave outside of the dream. Mm-hmm. Everything it does is the activity of the dream, or the dreamer, you might say. The person, the character in the dream is moved by the dreamer. Everything it does, although you feel like you're an independent character, it feels real when you're in the dream, but upon waking, you realize it was just a storyline my mind invented, and everything I thought I was doing was what was written into the script for me to do. So it's actually life's power. It is the universe's power that's moving me, doing everything. Every urge that arises, every thought, every feeling, every action is being dictated by this divine power that's knowing itself. So this is one of the basic teachings of non-duality, is the idea of non-doership. That although I appear to do something, I truly do nothing. Mm-hmm. The person, the character that I think I am is just an idea or a story in the mind of, I am this person named blank. These things have happened to me in the past. These are the things I want. These are my fears. And it's just ideas on top of ideas on top of ideas. And when you stop identifying with the stories, you can really take a step back and see, just like everyone else around you, it's just a character that you're playing. It's not actually real. And you can get to a place of deeply observing that character and seeing its actions and thoughts as happening outside of you, like happening of their own accord through the laws of karma and the laws of physics. The environment is dictating everything the person does. There truly is no such thing as an independent, separate entity in the universe. The person is the universe, right? The person is the environment. They're one. They're deeply connected. And in this universe we live in, everything depends on everything else. So nothing acts independently. And every decision you make that you seem to make independently is actually deeply influenced by the flow of life. And the limited mind has no ability to see the connection of everything. It just identifies with whatever the body does and says, well, I'm doing that. Mm-hmm. So ego is just that voice that says, I'm doing that. I'm thinking that. And as you begin to question that voice and you say, well, who's the doer? Who's the thinker? Who's the chooser? And you start investigating your thoughts, you find, yeah, that's actually true. I never actually discover a thinker of thoughts. Thoughts just happen. They just appear in the mind. And then after the thought appears, that voice says, that's my thought. I'm thinking that. And if you slow things down and you just investigate, get still, you realize, no, actually conditioning is thinking. Like past karma, all the inertia from the past actions, like a wave in the ocean, is deciding what thoughts appear next based on whatever stimulus life brings to the person. Then a thought will match that stimulus. It's all just happening by some magnificent power. And I'm actually just the awareness that's watching all of it. And that's like this mind-blowing spiritual awakening that every soul will come to eventually. Many people listening have probably had that epiphany already. And you can have that epiphany and then go right back into duality again and identify with the ego again. Most people do that. But once you've truly seen it, you've sort of taken that red pill. You can never be fully convinced that I really am a separate character, occupying this body and making my own decisions to preserve myself and enhance myself. That old story and narrative that you used to believe just can't convince you anymore. And the more questioning of it that goes on, it becomes like a movie you've watched. Like, you've already seen the plot, you know what's going to happen. The movie can't really grip you anymore like it used to. You don't laugh at the funny parts anymore. You get more and more desensitized to the movie the more times you watch it. And eventually, after you've watched it, 40, 50, 70, 100 times, like just the thought of the movie just nauseates you, right? Like, give me anything but that. Let me watch someone get tortured with that, like anything but that stupid movie. And your ego will become like that to you. The more you question it, the more you say, really though, am I really the thinker? Did I really do that? Or did it happen by conditioning? You get so used to that eventually it loses all credibility in your mind. And you find yourself in this really amazing, spacious openness where you're just watching with this very like wondrous admiration at how life is just doing. Life is just happening. And there's nobody doing any of it because it's all one being, one interconnected experience that everything is depending on everything else. There's no independent doer anywhere you look. And I'm certainly not an independent doer. Like, it's easy to look out at the world and realize, oh, look, everything's just happening. Clouds moving, birds flying, cars driving. It's all just going on out there. But in here, there really is an independent, autonomous doer making all of its own decisions. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the arrogance of ego, right? So at a certain level, you see how stupid that is and how it can't possibly be true. And man, the liberation that comes with that, so far in my experience, just never ceases to deepen. And that's the mystery and the adventure that awaits all of us if we're just willing to question this self that we think we are.
So how do you find that balance between like having that understanding, but also like living your day-to-day life? Like, so you have this work, you have a business. So, how do you kind of function with the concept of, I'm here like moving into this flow, into the way things are working, but also knowing that you have to wake up every morning, you have to do these things. Mm-hmm. Like, what's that? How do you find that balance?
Yeah. Well, in a sense, the balance comes from annihilating all sense of trying to balance. Like, you don't actually balance between the spiritual world and the world of duality. Like, there's no balance actually. You have to realize that it's not real. It's just a dream. It doesn't exist. It's impermanent. And the ego says, well, you don't want to look at the world that way because then you'll become a serial killer, right, or something, right?
Or you just like won't wake up anymore. You're like, oh, well, okay. Can I go back home?
Yeah. It'll be some horrible existence. And it's like, no, actually the serial killer kills because they think the world is real. Mm-hmm.
True.
All evil is done because the mind is taking the world to be real. The more seriously the mind takes the world, the more it has to think about, the busier it has to get to sort it all out. And so the busier the mind gets, the more karma is created, which means the actions become increasingly distorted. More entropy is introduced into the conditioning, the more real it's taking reality to be, because the more real it takes the world to be, and I shouldn't have said reality, I meant the world, mm-hmm. The reality the mind's projecting, not actual reality. The more it takes it to be real, the more dire the consequences seem to be.
Mm-hmm.
right? If I don't get that thing that will bring me happiness, well, that's hell itself. So
Mm-hmm.
I've got to do whatever it takes to get it, run over anyone who's in my way. You know, these are the ways the mind thinks about the world when it takes it to be real.
Right.
So actually denying the reality of the world and realizing only the perceiver, only consciousness has reality, because it's the only thing in experience that doesn't change, that doesn't evolve, that isn't impermanent. Then actually what happens is it's just the funniest thing. It's like almost like the world does this about face or flips inside out or something. And this sort of like heavy, dense, separate external world that I used to experience doesn't exist. And everything just shines with divinity. Because you know it's not real, because you know it's a dream, it has a sacredness to it. It has like there's a holiness to it that you feel it's all you. Like it's all one dream. And just the fact that I'm awake, the fact that I'm experiencing, the fact that I'm aware means I am it.
Mm-hmm.
I am awakeness itself. I am this whole thing I'm experiencing. It becomes so obvious to you only once you stop taking the world to be real. So that's why in the Hindu tradition, they'll oftentimes will say in the sutras or the Vedas that when there is a mind, there is a world, because the mind projects the world, objects outside of me, separate from me, and so forth. And when the mind is dead, there's no more world, because there's nothing outside of you anymore. Every person you meet, you're meeting yourself in another form. It's just another character in the dream. Just
Mm-hmm.
like when I look in the mirror, I see another character in the dream. It's all equally my infinite self. And so all you see and experience is love. It's impossible to have any resistance towards anything once you know it's not real and you know that you're actually the dreamer of it.